Today's video is a different one than usual. I've been working really hard on this video for a few weeks. Maybe a little too hard. You may notice that this video already exists, but I've been working on this for a while. Trust me, I have the receipts for it, but I wasn't just gonna let all this work go to waste. So I decided to finish the video. Sorry if you've already seen it. You're probably not watching this if you've already seen it. But hey, if you are, thanks. The God of War franchise, winner of tons of awards, but most importantly, it's the winner of my heart. When Santa Monica Studios came out of the shadows and released God of War in 2018, I was instantly obsessed. I did everything there was to do in that game, and then I did it 4 more times. So imagine how excited I was to finally continue where the last game left off. Pretty excited. I had so much fun with this game that I just had to play it again. But I couldn't just do everything I just did again. Right? Okay, I have ADHD. I get bored easily. It's taken me 45 minutes just to write this part of the script. So I decided to mix it up. Luckily, God of War Ragnarok adds a lot from the last game. New ways to attack, a brand new weapon, and more importantly, multiple shields to pick from. You may be asking yourself, how do you beat a game with a shield? That's not a weapon. And my question for you is, see, in God of War Ragnarok, shields aren't just for blocking. They're for smacking too. Shield bashing an enemy does pathetic damage, but I got some tricks up my sleeve. So please, join me as I attempt to beat God of War Ragnarok with only a shield. Before this long and arduous journey, I decided to take a snowy roller coaster ride, only to find out that my dog was dying. Total bummer. I then wake up from a seemingly foreshadow-heavy dream to find Big Boy missing and run headlast into the woods to go look for him. And I was met with my first of many very slow fights. But luckily, I'm a pro. Okay, I died. Okay, I died a lot, God. But after a few tries, I was finally done. Oh boy. Some tedious shield bashing later, and I was finally ready to do some more tedious shield bashing. I was constantly surprised at how little damage this did, but I was even more surprised that it did absolutely 0 stun damage. This challenge was already proving to be harder than I expected. That's when I was attacked by a bear. I was really worried about how a boss fight would go, but throughout the challenge I found they were way easier than just normal enemy fights, since I could just focus on one enemy at a time and just memorize their moveset. So this fight was honestly pretty easy. I mean, yeah, I died a few times, but I got really good at parrying all his attacks and knowing when to attack, and then I ran across my first big problem. I got a little angry. See, usually your rage meter goes down over time, but for this fight, they really wanted you to punch him. I ran around trying to get rid of it. I tried attacking the air. I tried doing the angry grapple run. The challenge was over already. I couldn't even get past the first boss without attacking him at least 4 times. I was just going to call it quits on this challenge since I wasn't really that far ahead. I decided to reset and see if there was anything else I could do. And the strangest thing happened. When the game loaded, the bear had less health than it had before, and I had a full rage bar. I had completely skipped the required raged attacks, and you can't change my mind otherwise. So after a tiny bit of time travel later, I smacked the bear around for another 30 minutes until I had finally beaten him and found out why I had so much fun hitting him over and over again. I decided to take my anger out on my son and this tree real quick before we made our way home. Man, I'm glad the game's over and there's no more conflict to be had. We can just get back and take a nap. This fight was hard for a few different reasons. One, it is a long fight. It's technically 3 different fights with even more phases in them where Thor will do the same moves but he's been doing but slightly different. If this wasn't probably the coolest fight in the game, I'd probably have some qualms. But it was actually a lot of fun, and I performed better here than anywhere else in the challenge. Seriously, I barely got hit in the last phase. Anyways, probably thousands of smacks later, I got a little handsy and weirded Thor out, so he left. Believe me, when I tell you, this was the easy part. We were off to somewhere bad. See, in God of War Ragnarok, you have 3 different weapons you're supposed to use, and they each have different elemental effects. The blades have fire, the axe has ice, and the spear has wind. And to incentivize the player to switch it up and try all the weapons, certain enemies will have a force field of sorts that will only go away by doing the appropriate elemental damage to them. Or so I thought. See, when I came across these 2, I was clinical. Okay, I tried wailing on them, I tried running, I tried hiding, but nothing was working. Again, I was convinced it was over. And then I noticed the bar was going down, just very slightly. And the problem with these types of enemies is shield bashing them doesn't stagger them like normal. They'll keep on swinging, which isn't too awful on its own, but it becomes a real problem when you're dealing with more than one. So that's a lot. I had an issue of a ranged enemy up on a ledge I couldn't get to, but I decided reflection is the same thing as parrying. You know, so it counts, I swear. After plenty of deaths, I was finally free and ready to fight normal enemies again. Brother! Why does this keep happening? This fight was the last thing I wanted. I completely forgot that she breaks your shield. You can't block until you get a new one. What? What the fuck? So it turns out you can't block, but you can keep bashing. And technically, the shield's still on my arm, so it's still attacking with the shield, right? After backhanding her enough to put my dad to shame, I watched an old-time movie and went for a sleepover at my friend's house. Finally, I was able to get a new shield, and this is where the challenge really starts to open up. See, different shields have different effects and different amounts of damage they do. The Stonewall shield does great damage, but the Dauntless shield does stun damage. They can also both be charged up by taking damage or parrying for adding I decided to go with the Dauntless shield just in case there was some enemy on a ledge that I wouldn't be able to attack otherwise. So this is really where the game starts to open up, and I haven't talked about it yet, but now I have Atreus with me, which is great because 90% of the time he does more damage than me. You could argue that him attacking people with a bow isn't a shield, but it's not like I can send him away. So let's just ignore that. You see these little turds on the ground? If you played the game, you already know how annoying they can be. Let me tell you, they are a lot worse when you can only use a shield. You do absolutely no damage. And not only do you do no damage, you have to chase after them a lot of the time. I forgot to mention, but I also decided I wouldn't needlessly use the weapons to solve puzzles that weren't essential. So I didn't get most chests and secrets in the game. However, I did make an exception with this very first Nornir chest because the first health upgrade gives the most and I desperately needed more health. After some more sailing, we got a nice healthy dose of saliva and continued on our journey. Atreus got a boat upgrade that I, again, would only use if I had to. And I also, luckily, was able to buy the other shield now. Finally, I was able to do actually good damage, and I still had the ability to parry if I needed to. I also changed my armor because the perk of this armor would allow me to occasionally do massive extra damage on shield bashes after blocking or parrying. It was a lot more useful than you would think. This Dreki was honestly a really easy fight with the Stonewall shield because since it attacks in like little bursts, I was able to charge up the shield pretty well and do more damage than just like the base shield bash damage. Finally, we were off to the mines. This big boy right here was by far the hardest fight I had to deal with. He took no damage, would never stagger, so he just hit me through my attacks, and kept popping out more of the little buggers who would also smack me around. Not kidding, having finished this challenge, he is still one of the hardest parts. The rest of the mine was pretty normal. A lot of gremlins and a lot of slamming, but it was finally time for a new enemy. The name I can't pronounce are by far the most annoying basic enemies in the challenge. Because even if you block an attack, which is essential for getting some of the shields to charge up, you still take the Bifrost damage, which takes away your max health. Luckily, they stagger pretty easy and like to group up, making it really easy to attack multiple at once. And just like that, I had a God of War to God of War chat, a nice game of tug of war, and we were out of Svartalfheim. With the first real realm done, it was time for a curveball. Now, you might be thinking, playing as Atreus, doesn't that mean the challenge is over? He has no shield. What's he supposed to do? Well, that's what I thought at first too. And then this happened. That's a fucking shield, baby. Hell yeah. And if I got a shield, that means I can hit people with it. And trust me when I say, you can hit people with it. Atreus' shield attack is by far the best in the game. It is fast as hell. And since he doesn't have anything he's supposed to attack with besides his bow, the enemies he fights are very simple and get staggered very easily. Seriously, Atreus was the most fun part, strangely enough. Except when I got here. Now, I tried for a while to get past this part. Atreus' shield doesn't reflect, so that wouldn't work. I tried letting him kill me, hoping maybe something like the bear would happen, but that didn't work either. So, I had to use my bow. And the challenge was over. But if you think about it, it's not that different from a puzzle. It's not like I shot the enemy, he just happened to die from a barrel. So I pressed on without a doubt in my mind that I was right, and I smacked some more people around to prove how right I was. But then I got to here, and man, I love to make excuses and push the rules, but there was no getting around this one. I could make the same silly goose excuse with the Soundstone platform, but this guy was unavoidable. I truly, sadly, had to use my bow. Now I hear you asking, if the challenge is over, why is there still so much time left in this video? Well, that's because Mama didn't raise no quitter, okay? So what if I had to shoot one little stinky, icky Draugr, okay? I ain't gonna let him ruin the last 6 hours of my life. I kept going, with the confidence that this was the one and only failure. After that, the rest of the Atreus section was easy. I did get really worried about these nightmares, but if you get them against the wall, you can attack their hitbox just right and kill them with no problem. It works with every shield in the game. Next, I just had a friendly little chat with my surrogate mom, and bing bang boom, made it home in time for breakfast. Now that the first Atreus section was done, I was feeling really confident with this challenge, and it was time to go to everyone's favorite realm, Alfheim. Now, I don't know about you, but I hated Alfheim in the last God of War. Don't get me wrong, it has a lot of great moments in it, but something about it just rubs me the wrong way. And don't even get me started on the elves. Elves have to be by far the most annoying enemies in the game. However, in this game, you fight the light and dark elves, so it's double annoying. Let me tell you, the shield doesn't help. Some like to throw these heat-seeking balls at you, and they are very annoying to deal with. You're supposed to be able to throw a weapon at them in the air, but you can't do that. Like, they attack pretty quickly, so you get to charge your shield up, but there's always so many of them and they move so fast, you rarely get to use it. Really not too much happens in this realm. You spend most of it going upstairs fighting the same annoying ass enemies, and then you spend the rest of it racing down the stairs. Even the boss was very easy. She does multiple attacks really fast, so the shield's almost always charged up, which letting you do pretty good damage, especially if you have the buff on. This very last part, when you're racing out of the realm, is annoying because you get split up from Atreus, and they send an ungodly amount of dark elves at you, which are arguably the most annoying elves with their ranged, like, landmine attack. But besides all that, the weirdest thing to happen is an elf kamikazeing itself, which can't be too important because everyone's eating dinner seconds later, completely unfazed. After a nice nap and hallucinogenic experience, we find ourselves in Jotunheim. This part of the run is very easy because you mostly just ride a yak the whole time and get vegetables. There's a lot of these little lizard guys in the beginning that are kind of annoying to catch, but after that it's right back to teen dating simulator. However, as will become tradition, it wouldn't be an Atreus section if there wasn't an issue. See, after clearing out these Draugr on the ground, I was just left with these few guys on the ledges that clearly I couldn't reach. I was really pissed because once again, I found so many loopholes and ways around stuff, but was stuck because of 2 guys on a cliff. And then this happened. For some reason, Angrboda will just stand there, doing nothing. But if an enemy hits her, she'll attack right back. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I truly felt like God gave me a gift. Too bad for me, he was about to take it away. See, the hard part of this level isn't the Draugr hiding on a cliff or these big scary wolf things or picking vegetables. It's her grandma, this grandma. See, this isn't a normal boss fight. You can't do any damage to her physically. Instead, the only way to lower her health is to attack the bowl she's holding. And even though I clearly should be able to attack it with my shield, I can't. But God gave me one more gift. I noticed I was able to stand on this ledge and wait, and every once in a while, seemingly at random, Angrboda would throw one of her little paintballs at the bowl, doing the tiniest bit of damage each time. This worked pretty well until her second phase, she kind of covers her bowl. Now, Angrboda would still be able to hit the bowl, but it was very rare. They both flailed around like spaghetti. So getting Angrboda to be at the right angle to hit the bowl at the right time was very difficult. But I did it. I suffered around. I ran around for over 2 hours just letting her throw paint at her until I got to this point. When the boss's health would reach 1 bar of health, Angrboda wouldn't do any more damage, no matter what. So I very sadly, once again, had to use the bow. But it's technically not attacking her. It's attacking the bowl. So I think it's fine. But if you don't worry. Kratos yelled at me for it before he got distracted. This was a breath of fresh air, let me tell you. The Stonewall Shield is just busted against bosses, even when they have great health. And the best part of this boss is it gives you a new, and really the only usable rage path for this challenge, that lets you heal, which I desperately needed. It's Freya! We're friends now! And Brock's here too! Well, what a party this is. I'm sure nothing could go wrong now. I accidentally made armor that I definitely didn't want, and I was absolutely too stubborn not to wear it now. But it's fine, because soon we're about to get very good armor that's going to help us with some future problems. I tried to sneak past this ancient, because they used to be somewhat passive, but they just really wanted to test me, I guess. Luckily, you're allowed to deflect some of their projectile attacks back into their heart, which does pretty good damage, honestly. Then I came across this oversized dog with an elemental shield, but thankfully, almost every other shield is better than the starting one at damaging these shields. Charging the Stonewall shield up does great damage to it. It's almost like I'm actually attacking normally. Now finally, we have a new shield, and I have a very complicated relationship with this shield. When I first got it, I was very excited to use it. I assumed it was going to be the shield for the challenge. And then I got destroyed by this guy. And instead of blaming me, which obviously it couldn't be, I'm a gamer, I decided it was the shield's fault, and I switched back to the Stonewall one. Don't worry though, we'll see it again later. Finally, it was time to help Freya break her curse. Never mind. I actually expected this fight to break the challenge. I knew the last big boss did, but that wasn't Kratos, so shh, it doesn't count. But actually, it went really well. You just have to time your attacks well, and
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
I tried reflecting his projectiles, but they didn't even do any damage. So I very pathetically had to use the axe. What? It does 0 damage. Hell yeah, that doesn't count. It's just a puzzle then. It's just a puzzle then. Don't you dare argue that. It's just a puzzle. I couldn't believe it. I was actually gonna beat this fight with basically no problem. Oh, yeah. I got nothing. Even though this also does 0 damage, it still feels like an attack. So I don't know. Looking back, I noticed even though I wasn't doing any damage with the shield, she was still taking like a small amount of stun damage each hit. So maybe if you could somehow fill that up, you could do it. But I feel like it's just as likely to break the AI. So take that as you want to take it. I take it as Mama didn't raise no quitter. Okay? All right. Nifoku? Don't even know her. Moving on. Well, these are the last things I wanted to see. For those who don't know, you can't hit these without them being hit with an arrow by your companion first. At first, I thought I could cheese it by parrying their attacks, but it did absolutely nothing. So finally, my last little excuse was taken from me. I finally had to admit that no, you can't beat God of War Ragnarok with only the shield. Okay, but like how many times can you not, right? Like, that's gotta be the last time. So with a new, though quite similar goal in mind, I continued on, as to not have the last 12 hours of my life go in vain. So, let's move on. After that depressing event, let's do something fun. This is Lunda. She's gonna give us something fun. See, she wants us to go get an orb. And while going after this orb, she says to look out for her armor pieces. And that's the real pull of this quest. That's what we really want. However, first, we have to deal with this Revenant. Now, usually, you have to hit these enemies with arrows also before you can hit them, though there's an exception we'll see later. But luckily, these extremely flammable and dangerous pots just happen to fall on them. What are the chances? And 1, 2, 3. Now we have all the armor pieces, plus the orb. It was a chew toy, by the way. But none of that matters, because we finally have Lunda's lost armor set. Now, the belt and bracers aren't too helpful. They raise your stats a good amount, but the chest piece is extremely helpful. See, now when we block and or parry, there is a chance for the enemy attacking us to take some damage, and get poisoned as well, which lowers their level, letting our shield do even more damage to them. With everything I needed to make this game miles easier, I decided I wanted nothing to do with it and became a bear instead. I'm honestly very excited to play as Atreus now. I really missed how quick he attacks, and I got really high hopes for this time. God damn it. After failing the challenge real quick, I said hi to the best turtle I've ever seen. Seriously, think of the soup, and pieced out to Asgard to fail the challenge a little bit more, and then play some Uncharted instead. When I was greeted by this wonderfully kind man. Look, we're holding hands. He's even showing me around. I quickly dispatched of these enemies to take my revenge. However, no, that wasn't happening. But thankfully, Big Burly Man scared him away and whisked me on an adventure. For once, as Atreus, I had no issue. I was able to defeat every enemy I came across. Sure, fighting 2 ogres wasn't easy, but it wasn't impossible. Plus, it was very helpful to have Thor just thrashing everyone around. Now that's a lot of damage. I did have more wisps to deal with, but luckily I could just destroy this shrine they were coming out of, which is technically just property damage, so it's fine. And just like that, I was warming up my hands and doing a smooth transition into Kratos. Now finally I get to try out my new armor set. The poison doesn't go off as much as I'd like, but the explosion affects people nearby. So you can poison and damage people you aren't even attacking. And the armor set has really good strength stats, making me do even more damage than I was doing before. The best part of the armor, though, is the timing of getting it. Because I ran across this Revenant, and I got really worried. I tried running to the beginning of the area to try to maybe de-aggro it, but that didn't work. But then I realized as long as I'm blocking, she'll keep hitting me. And in return, she'll keep hurting herself. So she just ended up killing herself, which very easy for me. I also had to fight this Frost Phantom, which I was convinced was going to be the end. But luckily, I was able to destroy all of the little shrine things and squish him with relative ease. I saw these Revenants and got ready to sit back and sit there for an hour, but luckily this section was just a timed thing, so it moved me on. That was easy. Hell, after I got some very cryptic riddles, I was on my way to Svartalheim again. This fucking cave pissed me off. A lot of the enemies in here had unblockable ranged attacks, so my shield wouldn't do anything. And I had nowhere to dodge or move around because it's a fucking cave. And don't even get me started on these two. They did so much damage and took so little. They made me desperately switch shields to even have a chance. When that didn't work, I tried running away, but they were relentless. Eventually, by some grace of God, I was able to defeat them and continue on. That's gonna be a problem, huh? I tried very hard to deflect something at this, but I realized it's basically the same as the little shrine. So technically, it's just property damage still. So after that, we went to see the lady, got a new weapon I can't use, and had a real stern talking to my rival dad. I should mention, I have officially switched to the Shatterstar shield. The ability to charge up the shield when you want is too good, and it does great stun damage. But that doesn't matter, because we're back to playing Speedy Boy, and he just combos people. Fucking look at that. They can't even breathe. We don't have Thor this time, but we might as well, because Thrud does basically the same amount of damage, which is nice. Okay, so we came across another Revenant, which is usually bad news. But remember earlier when I said there was an exception? For some reason, Atreus' shield bash is able to damage the Revenants, even though I never shot any arrows. I thought maybe it was Thrud, but it works later when you're alone, so I don't know what it is. I was so happy to find this little weird glitch, which made it so much more annoying when I came across this little guy. Thrud and the sword refused to attack him. He wouldn't come down. I was getting really angry that I could sneak through most problems and find loopholes for everything, but every Atreus section had one dude that I had to shoot with my bow. And it's never one you expect, it's always some random guy. So anyways, I threw my shield at him and moved on to the biggest good boy you've ever seen, and I set him free. I'm sure that was the right choice.
Garm? Great bleeding fuck, lad, you feed Garm?
So it wasn't the right choice, I take it. I tried to skip this realm tear out of pure laziness, but that didn't seem to work. But luckily I learned in this challenge that you don't really need to kill enemies. You just gotta wait, which is great, because my best way to kill them at the moment is just pushing them off the map. I will say, I am very glad I gave this shield another chance, because it is great. It allows me to be more offensive and actually do good damage, which doesn't make that much of a difference because next up is Big Good Boy himself. And although this fight isn't hard per se, you get like 2 attacks in every minute. So it is very long and tedious. Add in multiple phases and occasional parts where you just have to stand there and wait, and I'm starting to question my love for dogs. But finally, we give him some very internal pets, and he becomes a very good boy. And we reach the point in the game that everyone loves. The boss has become a basic enemy, which really sucks extra this time because since they deem the Centaur guys not strong enough, I am forced once again to use a bow on these little fart clouds. I really tried again, but God just hates this challenge. I'm sorry. Here's some sleeping dogs to make up for it. After that, we sneakily snuck into the enemy's base and had our ambush ambushed. I tried to grab the moon, but some fucking Ben 10 transformation beat me to it. Oh, yeah, did I mention the moon was stolen? After a real quick chase scene, I finally caught up to the ne'er-do-well and this random bird. I thanked them kindly for the race, and finally the moon was in my hand. I brought it back to the wolves who were looking at it like it was one mighty snack, but then they just ran away. Now, what would a good game be without a rescue mission? Well, that's exactly what we're gonna do. But real quick, I'm gonna lose the challenge. Now, with the moon back in the sky and the wolves on our side, I nicely ask them to make it daytime so the vines will move out of my way. And then I quickly have them change that back because I really wanted to see them again.
I wanted to see the wolves again.
Don't judge me. Dummy. Now, since I'm really indecisive, I make it nighttime again real quick, and then the rescue is on. I gotta say, this is going smooth. That's right, never mind. So, for those that don't know, you're only supposed to be able to hit Heimdall with the spear for for the first few phases. So after some animal cruelty real quick, I had to see how far I could push it. You can parry one of his attacks in the first phase, but like the wisps, it doesn't actually do anything. And he won't damage you either if he hits you. So technically, the fight hasn't started. And since the spear doesn't do any damage either, it's not really a fight. We're just kind of playing, you know? It's just wrestling. It's not serious. Once you stun him enough to do damage with a punch, you're allowed to start attacking with your shield, and he'll start actually attacking too. However, there's a lot of times where he'll just run around and dodge everything again, but just wait and you'll be able to hit him again in a few seconds. I wish I could say the second phase was harder, but no, it was really all the same. Maybe he should have made Bifrost lungs too. And with the first god of the game dead, I grabbed Freyr and began the last dash of the rescue mission. They give you a lot of badass quick time events to do during this chase, but funnily enough, you can just ignore them all with no penalty. So, can't get me there. After that, it's just a quick flying boat ride and a very cool, albeit random, sacrifice from minor character D, and we're done with Vanaheim. Or are we? Because it's time for our very last detour. We are going to go get the best armor for this challenge. But first, we're going to take the boat in search of minor character D, and take a small shortcut. This is exactly the armor set we need. Not only does it boost shield attacks by 50%, it stacks strength and defense on blocks. However, it requires dragon teeth and dragon claws to craft it, so we gotta do some hunting. My first target is the dragon trying to eat our friend here. It was going really good. I was smacking him all around. And then he went up and didn't come down. You're supposed to throw a weapon at him to have him come crashing down, but clearly I can't do that. I was convinced I wasn't going to be able to do this. I was online looking for other dragons and drekkies I could go hunt and have them add up to the amount I needed. But I decided to try something real quick. See, strangely enough, even though this tack says it's unblockable with the red ring, you can reflect these balls at him, and they drop him out of the sky. I couldn't believe it. I was finally taking this challenge back. And just like that, the mighty dragon was dead. Now, in order to get the remaining teeth and claws, I needed to head into another secret area, the jungle. After opening up this dam, not only do I need to survive the double Drekkie fight behind me, which, yes, I say survive because it was way harder than the others. I need to find a secret Drekkie in the crater you can only get to with a boat after the water fills up. But after all this work, it was absolutely worth it. The extra shield damage is immediately noticeable, and the stackable buff is a great bonus to it. Now, as almost tradition at this point, after getting the really cool armor, it was time to play as Atreus. However, this is the last time, I think, so let's make the most of it. I popped my way into Asgard and went searching for a very calm and reasonable man, and had a lovely chat with him. It was so lovely, in fact, that the whole bar became enthralled with jealousy and went on a riot. This part was super easy because they take your arrows away anyways, so there's no worrying there. Now, I was getting a little worried here, but wait long enough and it moves you forward. Now, a hop, skip, and emotional family dispute later, we were in Niflheim. And I gotta say, I was so happy when I first played this game and got to the second area in Niflheim. I know it's not much still, but I just love the iciness of it. It actually feels like, you know, the realm of ice, not just a series of fights in the fog. Don't get me wrong, I love that, but this looks so cooler. Almost as feeling my love, this realm gave me no issues at all. There was this fight with a frost ancient that I thought would be annoying, and I'd have to run up and get 1 to 2 hits in before having to wait for a few minutes, but Thor got bored of that and just decided to wreck him. But clearly he still was pretty bored, because then he tried to squish my head like a grape. I pieced out there real quick to another giant of a man that could protect me. But sadly, I wasn't the one who needed protected. After a very emotional time, ruined friendships, and character development, we were ready to take this war to Odin. But we first needed to make a quick visit to the Steam Room realm, where I had to fight this Flame Phantom. I destroyed the first shrine, and was feeling good. But then I saw that the other two were both placed very far away, and there was no way the shield was reaching those. I don't know if this still counts as property damage, but we're so close to the end, I don't care. After that, I dealt with 2 ancients. This wasn't hard, really, but it was really annoying to get the right reflect angle and timing while getting attacked by the other one. But I am a gamer after all. Taken aback by my gaming prowess, Surtur brought me down to the beginning of the universe to show me how pretty it was, and I promptly thanked him. This quickly received a police response, and like the true rebel I am, I resisted arrest.
Then pay with your blood.
Odin must have been on something when picking out these Valkyries, because they are nothing compared to the ones in the last game. I mean, there's 2 of them, but even together at once, it's still easier than one from the last game. The hardest part is saving Atreus every 5 seconds. But at least he finally got hungry and started to help. With the Valkyries finally defeated, it was time to make our attack on Asgard. After some quality father-son snugs and one last hallucinogenic dream, it was time to blow the loudest bubble blower in history and get some justice. Odin sent waves of his army at us. Men, beasts, dragons, but none proved more formidable than this fence here. Seriously, I don't know what happened here, but that gate was still there, and no new enemies were spawning. It just wouldn't let me progress. Thankfully, just restarting the checkpoint fixed it, but I think the game's starting to get annoyed of my challenge. I gotta say, this is still one epic as hell fight, even when all you're doing is playing a glorified drum. Part of the wall falls, and we quickly switch to Atreus to quickly ruin the challenge. It's like they knew I was so close to the end, they just had to throw in one quick Atreus fight that is gonna ruin the whole thing. At least I got to walk around as a bear. See, they want you to go ham here and eat people, but if you just let Sindri kill everyone, you'll end your transformation just in time for Kratos to be back. Oh, there he goes. This fight with Thor is miles easier than the first one. Don't get me wrong, he still thrashed me around a little bit, but I do way more damage than I did before. But a lot of Thor's attacks are the same as the first fight. Granted, they're a lot more flashy, but I still have them mostly memorized at this point, and there's only one phase this time, because the real boss here is Odin. The first phase of this fight is kind of difficult, because Odin runs around so much, he's constantly dodging or flying in the air or shooting a cold Kamehameha at me. Plus, he splits up the place into different sections, and my dumbass can never figure out how to traverse them. Yeah, I know it's simple, I'm just dumb. But if you're lucky, Odin will grace you with his presence long enough for you to commit enough abuse to be a retirement home, and move on to phase 2. This phase, believe it or not, it's a lot easier to me than the first. Sure, he still runs around just as much, and now he does attacks that make it almost impossible to get in close, but it's a lot more predictable in my mind. You know, it does get really annoying though when he only has a tiny bit of shield left and you can't get in to hit him because he's pelting you with shit from across the map. But eventually, like all before him, he was not special. Like gods, beasts, and Draugr alike, he fell to the shield. They all fell to the shield, except the ones who didn't. And just like that, I was pushed through a portal, hugged it out with the boy, had a very unfortunately timed texture glitch, and stood somewhat triumphantly on the mountaintop, proving that you cannot beat God of War Ragnarok with only a shield. But you can come pretty damn close. Maybe someone else knows some tricks I don't, but I tried my darndest, and I'm pretty proud of the results. So, yeah, thanks for watching. I'm not forgetting anything, am I? Nope, definitely not.